Do you ever get that feeling before a drop? Like your blood's fizzing just under the skin, nerves dancing like they know something you don't? I've felt that before every op I've ever been on, but this time, it was different. This one wasn't a strike, it wasn't recon. It wasn't even a suicide mission, at least not officially. The briefing was straightforward. Infiltrate an ancient alien megastructure out in deep null space, codenamed Black Echo, and disable a Shatari-built gate system before they could use it to move fleets into our territory. Get in, plant charges, get out. Except the moment we stepped into that place, everything changed. The station, if you could call it that, was the size of a small moon, all black alloy and geometric impossibility. No windows, no thrusters, no signs of life. Just hanging there in the dark like it had been waiting for someone dumb enough to poke at it. That someone was us. We inserted through a compressed rail drop. 10 of us in full exo armor, suits sealed, weapons hot. Our Sergeant Danner was the kind of guy who didn't flinch unless you stuck a plasma torch in his face. Solid, unshakable. If I had to get trapped in hell with anyone, I'd want it to be Danner. The entry vector took us into a structure that felt wrong, like it wasn't built exactly, more like it had grown. The walls were smooth but somehow shifting, the corridors too quiet, the air charged with a kind of pressure that made you feel like you were underwater. We passed through a series of environmental membranes that hissed and sealed behind us, each one tighter than the last. No resistance or any sign of Shatari existence, just silence. We pushed deeper, following a low-energy trail that Trask, our systems guy, picked up on his scanner. He said it was gate energy, residual and unstable. At the time, I didn't think much of it, just another ancient artifact with too much tech and not enough instructions. Then we found the core. It was massive, bigger than anything I'd ever seen inside a constructed space. The ceiling vanished into darkness, and the walls curved like an endless gear, rotating in pieces, aligning with that slow, deliberate rhythm you feel more than hear. At the center of it all was the gate, a ring of aloe and light floating with no visible supports, dead silent, until it wasn't. Reyes got too close. She stepped up to the platform to get a better read, and that's when it came alive. The whole chamber lit up. The hume turned into a thrum that shook through my boots. And the gate flared to life, that blue Shatari glow spiraling from its core like a vortex trying to remember how to breathe. Then the doors behind us sealed. All of them. We tried everything, backtracking, blowing hatches, even cracking the inner locks with brute force. But the station had shifted, literally. The corridors we came through were gone. New ones had formed. The layout had changed, like it was alive, and didn't want us to leave. And the worst part, Trask found the control feed. Turns out the gate only works one way, from their side. Whoever built this thing didn't design it for round trips. It's a spear, not a tunnel. A perfect one-way invasion corridor aimed directly into the heart of our space. And now it was open. We tried contacting command. Whatever this place is made of, it eats signals like candy. EMP-hardened directiona. Nothing got through. As far as Earth is concerned, we never even made it to the objective. So Danner made the call. "We hold it," he said. Just like that, without hesitation. Hold it. Like we were digging trenches on a dead world and praying the enemy came through slow enough for us to count them. Like we had options, but we didn't. We set up fallback positions across the primary entry vectors. Rigged motion mines, mounted auto turrets, laid suppressor fields and hard light barricades. If the Shatari came through, they were going to get a welcome they wouldn't forget. The first wave hit us 8 hours later. Scouts mostly. Light exos, low armor, fast movers. They came through, silent and coordinated, right up until we lit them up. They weren't expecting resistance. That mistake cost them. After that, they came harder and heavier. Mech-grown warforms, breachers, drone clouds that ate metal and spat plasma. Every time the gate pulsed, something worse stepped through. It's been 42 days since we lost contact. 42 days inside a tomb that keeps trying to kill us, holding a position we were never meant to survive. Less ground to cover, fewer corners to defend, less of us, but we're still here. Every day the gate activates, I think this will be the one. The push we can't stop, the breach we can't seal. But it hasn't happened yet. And if you're hearing this, somehow, someday, know this. We stayed, we fought. Because someone had to hold the line. And no matter what the Dominion sends through that gate, they'll find one thing waiting for them on the other side. Us. The weird part was how quiet it was. Black Echo didn't have the usual hum of ship systems or the low mechanical heartbeat of something running power across its frame. It was silent, not dead, just watching. Like it didn't need to make noise to remind us it was alive. After the lockdown, we took the first 6 hours just trying to map a retreat route. We split into fire teams, dragging sensor buoys behind us like breadcrumbs in case the station shifted again. I was paired with Trask and Reyes. They were both good under pressure, smart, efficient. But we were all stretched thin already. None of us said it out loud, but the second that gate lit up, we knew we weren't going home. The core chamber, the one housing the gate, was the only place that stayed stable. The rest of the station kept changing. Walkways moved, wall panels retracted or extended like they had their own plans. Trask kept muttering about quantum lock topology and sentient infrastructure, which sounded like bullshit, but it didn't change the fact that one of the corridors we just walked down was gone when we came back 5 minutes later. The Shaori didn't build stuff like this. Too organic and too refined. No glyphs, no signs of control panels or power sources. If they were using it, they must have found it just like we did, and now they were powering it up. Danner made the call to stop trying to escape. We needed to hold position, secure the gate room, and turn it into a fortress. If the Dominion planned to use this thing as a beachhead into human space, then this was the hill we were dying on. So we set to work. We dragged crates of micro-turrets into the choke points and mounted kinetic barriers at the two largest approach quarters, laid out a kill box using some portable cover, and whatever gear we had left. The smart minds went in first. Those little bastards could climb walls and adapt to movement patterns. We synced them to our IFF tags and gave them full autonomy. The station didn't care. It didn't interfere. Just kept pulsing, that quiet electric breath underneath our boots. Then the gate lit up again. At first we thought it was a feedback loop, residual energy from earlier. Trask was trying to track the data flow when he went still. Movement, he said. From the other side. We all froze. Danner motioned us to stations. The room went cold. The blue spiral in the gate's core deepened, brightened, and then collapsed in on itself. And from that rupture, 3 shapes burst through. Shatari shock troopers. They moved like fluid steel, digitigrade legs, high armor plates, glowing veins of power running through their limbs. I'd seen them before, during the second push on Vorta 6. You don't forget that silhouette once you've had to unload a full mag into one just to watch it stumble. We didn't wait. Danner gave the signal and every barrel in the room lit up. It wasn't a clean kill. The first trooper took a direct hit from Reyes's Gauss rifle and still managed to fire a plasma burst that melted half of Kerr's upper armor plate. He lived, but his shoulder looked like half-cooked meat. We dropped all 3 in under 90 seconds. But they didn't come alone. The gate pulsed again, twice in quick succession. More came through. 3 became 5, then 10. Then a crawler, a Shatari war beast that looked like someone stapled an armored rhino to a centipede and wired it with a fusion core. That thing screamed when it came through. Not a sound, really, more like a frequency. We felt it in our bones. 2 of our turrets shorted out instantly, the rest opened fire. It took 4 grenades and Danner's last portable rail cannon to bring it down. Then the gate quieted. No more troops, no movement, just steam, blood, and the stink of alien metal hanging in the air. We moved fast, dragging the wounded back behind the barrier line. Ramirez was on fire watch. He didn't even blink, just sat there with his rifle aimed at the gate, shaking like he was back in orbital jump school again. You think that was a probe? Reyes asked later while we reloaded and patched Kerr up. Trask just nodded. They were testing response time, armor resistance, weapon profiles. That crawler was data collection. He didn't have to say it, but we were all thinking the same thing. The next time they'd be ready. We weren't the first humans to fight Chitauri, but we were probably the first to fight them alone, inside one of their own toys, with no backup, no comms, and no supply chain. We were a rounding error in the Dominion's invasion math, but they made one mistake. They gave us a door, and we were the only ones standing in front of it. The first few days were chaos, but after the third wave, things started to shift. Not just in the station, in us. We stopped thinking like a strike team and started thinking like survivors. Holding ground in Black Echo wasn't about winning firefights. It was about delaying the ones we couldn't win. And we all knew the big one was coming. Every 12 to 16 hours, the gate flared. The pattern wasn't precise, but it was there. Danner marked the cycles on the wall of the old comms alcove using the tip of his combat knife, each strike a hard gouge in the alloy. After a while, it looked like a tally in a prison cell. Probably felt like one, too. We didn't have food for long. Rations ran out by day 11. Hydration systems were better. We had suit recyclers and 2 still functioning purifiers in the lower chambers. But hunger set in fast. Ramirez started chewing stim gum just to keep the feeling out of his gut. I caught Trask cutting slivers off Shatari bio skin from a fallen trooper, trying to run it through the printer filter. Didn't work. Whatever they're made of, it's not exactly USDA approved. But it wasn't just about staying fed, we needed to evolve. Shatari weapons were keyed to biometric IDs, but Reyes managed to crack the neural loop back in one of their gauntlets. It took her 3 days of delicate surgery and borrowed code from Trask's Omni-Rig, but by the end of it we had a working plasma caster. It overheated every 6 shots and had a tendency to discharge randomly if you moved too fast, but it could burn a hole through 2 inches of reinforced wall plating. Danner assigned it to Kerr since his armor was already half melted anyway. We started collecting tech after that, swapping parts from dead troopers, pulling micro-shields off downed enforcers. Trask figured out how to rewire one of their drone cores into a motion tracker. Ugly little thing, beeped like a dying frog, but it gave us a 10-second warning before the gate pulsed. That gave us time, and time gave us options. We rotated shifts every 6 hours. 4 on the line, 2 on overwatch, 2 on repair arrest, what little of it we could get. We never slept more than a couple hours at a time. Nobody trusted the station to stay quiet long enough. Sometimes it moved while we were unconscious. Kerr woke up once with a wall 3 feet closer than it had been when he dozed off. But we adapted to that too. We stopped sleeping in the same place twice, we booby-trapped the entrances, reprogrammed one of our drones to scream bloody murder if anything moved within 10 meters of our zones, and hot-wired the environmental panel near the gate, so it pumped freezing air through the chamber just before an enemy pushed, messed with their vision, slowed their reaction time, bought us an edge, and every time they came through, we made sure at least one of them didn't go back. I remember the 7th wave clearly, not because it was the worst, but because it was the first time we really hurt them. The gate flared, that same blue vortex, spiraling open like a god's eye. This time, they didn't send troopers. They sent an execution unit. 5 Shatari Voidwalkers. Heavily armored, shielded, plasma-tethered, built like walking tanks. We'd only seen them in footage from the Grath front. They usually deployed to exterminate resisting colonies. We weren't a colony. We were a bunch of people in a glorified cave. But we were ready. We rigged the chamber's outer scaffolding with shaped charges, stole the explosive compound from the first crawler's corpse, packed it into repurposed mines. When the Voidwalkers breached, we let them advance just far enough to feel safe. Then Reyes triggered the charges. When 2 of them went down in the blast, their shielding fried instantly. The other 3 staggered exactly what we'd planned. We hit them with EMP grenades next, the last of our stock. While they stumbled, Kerr rushed in with the plasma caster and cut one in half. It wasn't clean, and it definitely wasn't quick, but it worked. The last 2 tried to retreat. That was new. They started backing toward the gate like they were trying to recalibrate, maybe to transmit what they'd learned, maybe to request more. We never found out. Danner stepped forward, shouldering the portable rail launcher we'd rigged from spare parts and an old power core. He didn't aim for the walker's chest, he aimed for the gate itself. The round hit mid-flare just as they tried to step back through. The energy feedback was beautiful and terrifying. The gate screamed, not metaphorically, and the pulse lit up the whole chamber in white. When the light cleared, both walkers were gone. So was the launcher, so was Danner's left arm. He didn't even flinch, just looked down at the cauterized stump and said, "That'll slow 'em." That was the turning point. Not because we'd won anything we hadn't. We were still starving, still trapped, still bleeding. But for the first time, the shoddy blinked. They sent machines, then warriors, then monsters. And now, they were starting to learn fear. There's a rhythm to war if you live long enough to hear it. Not just the fighting, but the spaces in between. The waiting, the fixing, the bleeding that doesn't stop. It all starts to feel mechanical. Sleep, if you could call it that, came in 10-minute bursts. If you dreamed, it was through gritted teeth. Half the time I didn't even know what day it was. Trask swore it had been 29. Reyes said 33. We scratched tallies on the wall until we ran out of wall. We lost Ramirez on what I think was day 35, maybe 36. It wasn't dramatic, no blaze of glory or any last stand, he just didn't wake up. The doc had warned us, said his lungs were half full of blood and the medphone we used was a stopgap at best. His armor ran out of thermal regulation during a gate breach, and he'd been freezing to death from the inside ever since. We buried him in a collapsed tunnel near the reactor alcove, under a pile of broken Chitauri chassis. Kerr carved his name into one of the metal plates, left his rifle there with it. That left 5. After that, we stopped burying. We needed the bodies, ours and theirs. Our armor was failing. Power cells couldn't recharge fast enough. The environmental seals on mine had cracked during the 11th wave, and I'd been patching it with thermo-weld and scrap from alien plating ever since. I looked like a salvage rat with a death's wish. Trask lost his left eye when a drone detonated near the forward barrier. We gave him a replacement Chitauri ocular module. It synced with his rig, but kept flickering, like it couldn't quite figure out who it was working for. Sometimes I'd catch him twitching, like he was seeing things we weren't. Reyes didn't talk much after Danner went dark. It was during the 14th wave. A cloaked infiltration unit got through the mines, right into Zone 2. Danner had just finished reinforcing the west corridor when the bastard struck. Blades out, fast as hell. We heard the struggle through comms, a scream and then a violent silence. We found him bleeding out with a Chitauri sword shoved clear through his abdomen. He was still breathing. Reyes froze. Just stood there, staring. I remember kneeling next to him, trying to compress the wound with what little biogel we had left. Danner looked up at me, eyes glassy, and just said, "Hold it." That was all. Then he was gone. He'd led us since the start, made the call to stay, gave us something like purpose when everything around us was collapsing. After that, no one talked about leaving, not that we had the option. But even if a hatch had opened right then, I don't think any of us would have walked through it. We were ghosts in the machine now, part of Black Echo. And so were they. The Chitauri changed tactics after the 15th wave. No more brute force, no more brawlers or beasts. They sent creepers, stealth units, whisper quiet, heat shielded. They moved like shadows, slipped through seams in the walls. Let us think the gate was quiet before striking from behind. We lost Kerr that way. He was on Overwatch with Reyes, monitoring the gate chamber from one of the suspended scaffold pods. There was no motion on the tracker. Then a pop on the comms, and nothing but screaming. By the time we reached them, Reyes was bleeding from a dozen cuts, half her helmet torn off. And Kerr was gone. We found what was left of him below, folded in half like a broken ration bar. So that left 3 of us, me, Reyes, and Trask. I won't lie, there were moments I thought about ending it, just walking into the gate the next time it flared and seeing what was on the other side. Maybe it'd be quick, maybe not, but it'd be different than slowly starving in a steel tomb while something alien watched from the walls. Reyes kept going because she was angry, always had been. After Kerr, she stopped fixing her armor. Said if she died, she wanted them to see her face. Trask kept going because he was obsessed, not with surviving, he knew we weren't, but with understanding the station. He was convinced it was more than a weapon, said it was watching us, learning from us. He claimed it had started rearranging itself to help us, not trap us. I thought he was losing it. Until the next flare. That time, the gate surged, but nothing came through. Instead, the doors behind us opened. One of the collapsed corridors, gone since the first day, was open again, lit from within, like a hallway on a ship that had just powered back up after a long sleep. Trask wanted to follow it, said maybe the station was offering a way out. Reyes thought it was bait, a trap, another Shatari mind game. We argued for hours, me and Reyes yelling in circles, Trask quietly watching the gate like it would answer us. In the end, we stayed. Because the mission hadn't changed, and because, even if we could leave, someone still had to be here to keep the next wave from making it through. Someone had to hold the line. It didn't start with sirens or flashes of light or anything loud. It started with a kind of stillness that made my skin crawl. The station, which had always pulsed with low ambient energy, like a heartbeat buried in metal, went silent. The floor stopped vibrating. The walls stopped shifting. Even the faint, ever-present hiss of recycled air vanished. The entire structure held its breath. We knew what that meant. Rhea stood near the primary corridor, leaning against a half-melted support strut, her hands clenched tightly around the grip of her modified Shatari rifle. Her face was streaked with blood and grime, one side swollen from an older injury she never let slow her down. Despite everything, her expression was calm, focused in a way that only people with nothing left to lose can be. "You feel that?" she asked quietly. I nodded, eyes on the gate. Too quiet. Trask had already positioned himself at the control terminal we'd cobbled together from scavenged tech and Shatari interface nodes. He didn't speak at first, just stared at the gate like he was waiting for it to confirm what he already knew. "They're not sending another wave," he finally said. "They're sending all of it. This is the last push." The gate began to pulse again, slower this time, but deeper. It felt like a storm building behind glass. Sparks of energy crackled across the surface of the ring, and the air became thick with static charge. It didn't surge and fade like before. This time, it kept building. And then it opened. What came through wasn't a squad, it wasn't even a company. They poured through in coordinated waves, an entire strike force, meticulously timed and utterly synchronized. Dominion troopers in full exoshells, enforcer units bristling with plasma cannons, voidwalkers with shielded cores, and behind them, 2 war beasts the size of dropships. Even the drones looked upgraded, sleeker, more deliberate. The Dominion wasn't just throwing bodies through anymore, they meant to wipe us out, down to the last molecule. Reyes didn't hesitate. She screamed as she stepped forward, weapon raised, unleashing a focused plasma burst that shredded the lead formation. She moved like she'd been waiting her whole life for this moment. Every shot measured, deliberate, devastating. The first line of troopers didn't make it 5 steps into the chamber. I swung left, setting up suppressing fire to funnel them toward our kill zone. My rifle overheated halfway through the mag, but by then the smart mines had started detonating in tight, sequential bursts. Explosions staggered their front lines, sending bodies flying, limbs cartwheeling through the air. We'd designed this trap specifically for them, and for a few seconds it actually held, until the crawler burst through. The warbeast moved like a tank, with legs, claws glowing with raw energy. It tore through our barricade like it was paper, scattering wreckage and bodies in its path. Reyes hit it with a high-velocity rocket she'd salvaged from a drone cache. The explosion lit up the entire chamber. The blast knocked me off my feet. When I stumbled upright again, Reyes was down, her leg gone at the knee, armor smoldering. I ran to her, adrenaline drowning everything else out, and dragged her behind a shattered console. She was still conscious, breathing in sharp gasps. "I'm still here," she muttered, grinning, despite the blood on her teeth. I grabbed her rifle and turned back toward the gate. The room was chaos. Fire, smoke, tracer rounds slicing through the dark, screams I couldn't place. I kept firing, reloading, shifting angles. I don't even remember how many I dropped. It didn't matter. They kept coming. That's when I saw Trask move. He was at the terminal again, fingers flying across the interface, overriding safety locks, disconnecting power limiters. Sparks showered down as he tore through cables, reconfiguring pathways with the precision of someone who'd made peace with dying hours ago. "Trask, what are you doing?" I yelled, trying to push through the cacophony. He looked up at me with that half-human, half-machine eye of his. It flickered for a second, then steadied. "I'm shutting it down, all of it. You'll die." He didn't flinch. "We all will. That's not the point." The gate began to collapse, not deactivating but folding in on itself. The floor panels beneath it peeled open like petals, revealing the core of the station. A seething heart of raw energy pulsed beneath it, glowing brighter than anything we'd seen. Trask had exposed the very system the Dominion was relying on, and he was going to use it against them. "Run," he said. "Get to the far corridor. I've set the overload to trigger on feedback." I didn't argue. I grabbed Reyes, half carried her across the chamber, dodging plasma fire and falling debris. Behind us, the vortex began to suck inward, dragging Dominion forces back through the breach. Their formations collapsed as gravity twisted the room around them. I turned back once. Trask was still standing at the console, arms raised like he was holding it all together through will alone. The gate consumed him as it detonated. The blast was blinding. The sound swallowed everything. I remember heat, searing, suffocating heat, and then nothing. When I woke, the station was dark. I was pinned under debris, my HUD cracked, most of my suit systems dead. Reyes was beside me, still breathing. The gate was gone. Only a scorched ring of melted alloy remained, the walls around it warped, like they'd been pulled into another dimension. Somehow Trask had done it. He hadn't just shut the gate, he had destroyed the connection between their world and ours. He had burned the bridge behind them, and taken the enemy with him. Later, much later, a recon patrol picked up the signal. Turns out Trask had set up a final transmission protocol using the alien comms array, broadcasting everything we'd logged in short bursts, compressed and encoded, on repeat. It wasn't just a distress call. It was a story, and it spread. They called us the Echo 10. Even though only 2 of us made it out, even though most of our names were recovered from helmet tags and damage logs, they gave us medals, speeches, even statues back on Mars orbit and Titan Fleet HQ. But they didn't understand what it meant. It wasn't about glory. It wasn't about heroism. It was about drawing a line, holding it, and reminding the galaxy that when humanity gets backed into a corner, we don't beg. We build barricades. We dig in. And when the last gate opens, and the last empire comes crawling through, they'll find one thing waiting for them. Someone like us. They buried us in stories. The broadcast that made it out from Black Echo didn't just reach human space, it spread like wildfire across the front. Fleet Command picked it up, then the colonies, then every civilian channel from Titan to the far rim. Our final moments, our recordings, our sensor logs, all of it was spliced into battle briefings and morale tapes. People whispered our names in bunkers. They played our last stand on loop in recruitment halls. Turns out Trask's signal did more than warn them. It changed the war. The Dominion had never faced a wall like us before. But after Black Echo, they hesitated. Their forward fleets slowed. For the first time, they pulled back. Humanity didn't. We pushed forward. And when our ships arrived at the next contested system, they didn't bring diplomats. They brought soldiers wearing Echo 10 patches on their armor. 10 interlocking sigils representing every one of us who stood in that gate chamber and refused to fall. I wasn't there to see it, neither was Reyes. Our names are etched on steel, on stone, on holes drifting through the stars. But our spirit, it's marching with every unit that fights on. And now, when a Dominion commander sees humans arriving on the horizon, they don't ask how many. They ask which ones. Because they know when the gates open, when the breach widens, when it all goes dark, it's never empty. On the other side, there's always a human, and we never stop holding the line.